Hello, everyone. Welcome from across this gorgeous planet. We are one church, many paths, one mountain, where our mission is what Barbara Marx Hubbard and Dr. Mark Goffney call a planetary awakening in love through a unique self-symphony. And together we declare that the last day of the old face of evolution is honored as the first day of the new face of creation. I am Christina Amelong, the co-executive producer, along with Kirsten Zohar, and I am delighted to be here with each and every one of you today. I welcome all the new people. Please do share you are new in the chat box. We want to hear from you. When you do chat to everyone by checking that your chat settings say all panelists and attendees and not just all panelists. Use the chat function to say hi, to let us know where you're from, and to resonate the Dharma. In one church, many paths, one mountain. We are connected, we are whole, and we're expressions of the entire process of creation. We are activating a new humanity and we are awakening as a new species. Homo amor, the fulfillment of Homo sapiens. We are a church, a synagogue, a mosque, a temple, a zendo. We're all of it. No one is excluded, everyone is included, and we come together to attune to the evolutionary impulse awakening within us. Welcome home, everyone. We are overjoyed to be with you today in week 191 of One Church. Let everyone know about One Church, many paths, one mountain. We are doing this primarily through word of mouth, so you sharing about church matters hugely. Barbara Marx Hubbard talked about each of us having a family of 10 here in church. And I can tell you that that's a wonderful thing to be participating in. Leadership around church is a sacred opportunity. On YouTube, we are One Church, many paths, one mountain. On Facebook, we are facebook.com/onechurch.world. And right now we are live on Facebook, so take a moment and look at your notifications and share that live link on your Facebook page. After church, we will send you an email to invite your friends and family and forward that email right after church. Spend time on our website, www.onechurch.world. On the top menu of the homepage or the bottom of each page, you will find our membership link. With that, I give you a little bit of what to expect over this next hour. We begin with a Dharma recap, and then Dr. Mark sets our intention. Then David resonates the evolutionary love code we are working with. Then we move into prayer, then our sermons, and then when we close, we bring everyone on for our goodbyes. Mark wrote what he called evolutionary love codes. Mark and Barbara studied the codes together, often comparing them with Barbara's own 52 codes for conscious self-evolution. Those codes grew out of their radical commitment over 100 collective years, crystallizing the new story of humanity. Quote, evolving the course of consciousness and culture, which is the source code of love. Each church is a standalone, and every week's church builds on the week before. One church, many paths, one mountain is radically committed to telling the new story. Here goes my Dharma recap from last week. Evil is abusing power to avoid transformation, choosing integrity in every second. Mark asked us last week if we were willing to look at our life, to look together, to honor the gorgeous human being, George Floyd, to honor every human being whose life has been choked out, and to respond by coming love and justice. When have we choked injustice? When have we choked the tears of those we've placed outside of the circle? When have we failed to stand for love and justice? We see it, the knee of unlove, the knee of cruelty, the knee of abused power, and we scream for all the times we've never screamed before. The world's been burning. We cry for all the times we've never cried before. Every time when we really cry, we are crying for all the times. In that moment of screaming, we have to hold a vision. What is the sense making that we have to do? Evil is when I use power to avoid transformation. In the original Hebrew word for rage and the word for love are the same word, tom. Mad passion, mad rage, mad love. I reach into the rage and I feel my pain and I trace back to the root of the pain, and I actually step out of the abuse of power and I become the power of love. My transformation is the transformation of the whole thing. My transformation is not just my personal, local life. I am the leading edge of evolution. We download into reality these first principles, basic distinctions that allow us to evolve the field from the field of contraction that inexorably leads to the knee of unlove in the neck of the goddess, in the neck of the vulnerable, in the neck of all of those that we have placed outside of the circle, to a world in which we realize that that which unites us is so much greater than anything which divides us. The horror of history is in groups and out groups. We know that love matters and love is real. And yet through most of history, people have said love matters to only those who are in their circle. But to those who are outside the circle, who are stranger, who are infidel, whose neck I can't feel and whose breath I can't feel, we choke their dignity, we choke their tears, and we choke their soul. The universe, a love story, the amorous cosmos, the activation of the evolution of love. We know justice is real because we have a deeper sensory capacity, because we're more than mere bodies, because we taste it, smell it, see it, and hear it with our hearts and our souls. Every day we're deciding, where am I? We take a stand. We don't look away. We will be justice, a great and mighty tide, a tide that sweeps the land because we stand in integrity. Our sense making is our love, our sensuality, our feeling of this moment. It's our greatness, our gorgeousness that calls us to our godness. It's our accountability that calls us to step up and link hands and be an unbreakable bond of love and justice. It's not simple, and in every second we make a decision. Let us be love. Let us be the evolution of love together. And with that, I invite us to more deeply enter into the holy and sacred space of one church. And I turn my word to you, beloved Dr. Mark.
I'm feeling a little dislocated, and I think the whole world's feeling horrifically dislocated. And at the same time, I feel located, right? I feel with you. And I'm going to try and get this computer in the right place. Okay? Yay. There we go. I feel located, right? I feel with you in this enormous way and with the world in this enormous way. And I want to start by saying I am so hopeful. Can you feel that with me? Right? I want to invite all of us in this moment just to feel this incredible hope. I am so hopeful. Thank you, Christine Amelon, for that beautiful Dharma recapitulation. Thank you, David, for putting the code in the chat box. Maybe we'll put it in one more time. That'd be awesome. Okay? Thank you, David. And we'll put the order of church there also. That'd be awesome. And I think this is a time to speak softly. 2 weeks ago, here in One Church, Many Paths, One Mountain, where we're standing for the evolution of love, I did a clip, right, a conversation in which we played a clip from Barack Obama. And with his permission and with great respect for the office of the presidency and for the beauty of President Obama's service, right, we critiqued him very significantly on a number of levels, because that's what the process of growth is. It's what the process of knowing each other is. And we talked about a kind of failure of narrative, a failure to hold to a larger vision of value beyond the kind of postmodern deconstructed values. And I don't want to go into it now because that's actually not my point. My point is that we actually have to look at each exchange and at each moment with a person, right, and receive them anew. And in that moment, with enormous respect, we critiqued Barack Obama, and we put a clip out, right, which actually cited him directly. It actually had his video in it. And then we offered, a very detailed critique of the implicit assumptions, right, in his talk. Now I want to do just the opposite. And I am blown away by Barack Obama's leadership this week. And I'm blown away by the understatement and care of his leadership and what he said and what he didn't say, right? So one of the first things we have to do is we have to get out of a stance. We actually don't do thinking. We don't even do feeling, right? We do simulated thinking and simulated feeling. Do you get what I mean by that? Right? We're so busy virtue signaling. We virtue signal our feelings. We're afraid of Twitter mobs on either side. If we say something on one side, there'll be a right-wing Twitter mob that will descend on us and try and destroy our reputation and destroy our livelihood. And if we say something on the other side, there'll be a left-wing Twitter mob that will descend on us. And so we start virtue signaling, right? We virtue signal our pain, and we virtue signal our beliefs, and we don't even know what we believe anymore. And we're inundated by social media, right? Social media is damaging American psychology and damaging the integrity and fabric and core of the world conversation in multiple ways. And yet, social media also comes with its gifts. And how do we actually learn to actually receive those gifts, right? If that viral video would not have been shot, right, then actually George Floyd's death would have been unnoticed. And if it had not been posted, it had not been carried by social media. This is a moment, my friends, of contradictions. Can you feel that with me? This is a moment of immense contradictions. And we need to move from contradiction to paradox. And we need to actually find our inner center and actually begin to feel what we actually feel, not simulated feeling and not simulated thinking. To actually think what we actually think. To move beyond contradiction and to begin to hold paradox. Not to put anyone in a box. Right? 2 weeks ago, we critiqued President Obama, as he would expect in a society that's growing towards its next stage of evolution. And this week, right, we began by saying we're just blown away by Barack Obama's leadership, because that's what it was. It was understated, it was elegant, right? When he called the names, and calling the names is unbelievably important. He called the names of Trayvon Martin and, Tamir Rich and Michael Brown. And there's been this huge, beautiful calling of names. Let's say their names, right? And Eric Gardner, right? And Philando Castile and Breonna Taylor, right? And George Floyd, right? And the list goes on, right? Let's call their names. Let's call the names of every human being, and let's call the names of these human beings and say to them, and Barack Obama's words were, not all lives matter and not Black lives matter. He said neither. He said your lives matter. And he chose it carefully. And he was trying to say that there's something beyond this polarity. He was trying to say that there's some next step we need to go. Your lives matter. The deep truth of your lives matter. Black lives matter is absolutely true. Absolutely true. And we're going to talk about it deeply. And of course, your lives matter is absolutely true. And of course, all lives matter is absolutely true. And there's a shadow version of each one of those. Each one of those can be hijacked for a covert agenda that actually is not about love, and it's not about inclusion, and it's not about justice. And each one of those can be spoken in a sacred and a holy way. And Barack Obama majored in understatement, right? People wanted fire from him. There was a New Yorker article, right, that reviewed Obama's speech and was very respectful, but it said maybe next time we'll have some fire. But Obama didn't want fire. He wanted understatement. He wanted, right, to actually feel the pain. And he wanted to offer, what are our solutions? We want to honor this mass protest around the country. Every protest is holy. Every protest is absolutely holy. It couldn't be more holy. It couldn't be more sacred. And we're all protesters. And as Barack Obama said, the vast majority of law enforcement actually stands together with the protesters. There's no split. There's no split. That's not true. Right? Actually, we're all part of the same story. And yes, there are unique expressions, there's unique experiences. And we're going to talk about them. And we can't avoid them, and we can't homogenize people. Right? And when we say all lives matter as a way of avoiding Black lives matter, well, then it's a covert form of unlove. And if we say Black lives matter, right, in a way that descends, right, into something which doesn't hold the simple truth that there's no one outside the circle. The simple truth that actually there's one race, it's a human race. And within that one race, there's many races, and each one is honored and beautiful. And Martin Luther King, right? We want to judge each other by the content of our character, not by the color of our skin. So we want to stand with Martin Luther King. We want to stand with Barack Obama. And we've come together to do sense making. We're here in one church, one synagogue, one secular zendo, right? One Buddhist center, right? One, right? Wow, one. But that's the key to the whole thing. It's one. It's one love, and it's one heart. And it's one world. And it's one eros. right? And we have to come together, and our commitment here is to do sense making, right? Sense making. And our sense making isn't only for the people who are with us today, and thank you to everyone who's with us and who's with us in the replay around the world, right? Some 10,000 people, by this time, 15,000 have signed up, right, to be with us, right, in these conversations, right, in all the ways that you can. And we're madly honored to be with you. But we're speaking not just to each other, right? Our commitment is to become a new information ecology, to heal the broken information ecology. And we've been talking for years together about what we've called the second shock of existence. The first shock of existence is the realization at the dawn of human history that we're going to die, that the human being is going to die. And that knowledge of death pressed us into a new knowing of life, and a new knowing of life that transcends death. And that knowing of the first shock of existence of the death of the individual human being, that death which we began to understand was a night between 2 days, that knowing of death pressed us right into the best of humanity, the highest of our ideals. Barack Obama said it beautifully: we need to call America to the highest of her ideals. But then we realized, as we went through stages and stages of history, and as we exploded our capacity, our exponential technologies, and we moved into modernity with all of its healing, with all of its beauty, and we asserted human rights and universal human rights for the first time in human history, we also tragically misunderstood this new story. And we located the human being as a skin-encapsulated separate self-ego. And we denuded reality of a shared story of value. And we deconstructed the good, the true, and the beautiful. And the human being became guided by a success story, win-lose metrics, spawning vast, complicated systems which were non-intimate in their core. And no one would speak up, and no one would prepare, and we optimized for efficiency and quarterly profits, and not for resiliency and not for human life. And we knew a pandemic was coming, and we've talked about at the center for 10 years about the second shock of existence, which is catastrophic risk. All forms of catastrophic risk, and pandemic has been one of them. And catastrophic risk itself is but a dress rehearsal for existential risk. So we've been talking about the second shock of existence, and then one version of it exploded upon us, the pandemic, and we confront directly the second shock of existence. And we've said time and again, the only response to the second shock of existence, to the very real threats that face us, is to come together, to actually be one heart, to actually be one love, right? To actually realize that which unites us is so much greater than that which divides us. And to actually articulate a set of distinctions which are first principles for a new human and a new humanity. As Michelangelo did, as Da Vinci did, right, in Florence, where they understood that the greatest response to the Black Death, right, and the greatest response to the abhorrent racism that wasn't even called racism, no one had heard racism, right? Racism is a new word that shows a new awareness. Racism, right, knowing the word racism is a great momentous advance. But the word racism didn't exist, right, at the time of Da Vinci and Michelangelo, certainly not in the pre-modern period. Racism, what we call today racism, was an absolute given. It was an absolute given. There was no thought of any other possibility. And in responding to that world of us and them, of in-groups and out-groups, in which you love the in-group and you kill or hate those that you've placed outside of the circle, and the knee of unlove chokes the tears of injustice of every person and every group that's outside of the circle. And we defined people then by their blood, not by the content of their character, by their race, by their religion, not by the content of their character. Wow. And the response, Da Vinci's response, Michelangelo's response, right? The best of the Renaissance began, right, to see, okay, what's beyond this? What's the shared story? What are the new set of distinctions and first principles? And they got some of it right. And that which they got right birthed the great dignities of modernity. And that which they got wrong, that sense of separate self, of skin-encapsulated ego, as the fullness of our identity, the sense of a success story, of the fullness of who I am broke us, right? And we came right through our rapid win-lose metrics development to exponential technologies, which can actually destroy the planet. And so we're now again at this Da Vinci moment. We're at this Da Vinci moment in which we need to come together, and we need to come together to articulate a new story. There is no way through racism, and there is no way through existential risk, and there's no way through catastrophic risk, and there's no way through climate breakdown, and there's no way through the huge gap between the haves and the have-nots. There's no way through without a new story, without a new narrative of identity, a new response to the question of who am I, right? A new universe story in which I recognize that reality actually is an intimate universe, and that's the best of science that we know, interior and exterior sciences, and I'm a unique configuration of intimacy. And that which unites us is so much greater than that which divides us. And we can feel each other. We can feel each other when we go to a movie and we cry at a movie, right? We cry because we actually can feel each other, right? We can feel each other. There's not an impenetrable divide between Jews and non-Jews. My mother used to tell me about when she was buried alive at age 3. She was buried alive at age 3. Wow. What does that mean? She was before a firing squad at age 4. Somewhere around the same time, she was in a tree watching the Gestapo literally, and I apologize for saying the next sentence out loud, but literally ripping apart a baby. Right? Most of my family was gassed to death in concentration camps. And there's a unique Jewish experience that matters infinitely. And I invite everyone in the world to do their best to understand the uniqueness of that Jewish experience and the depth of it. And I'm madly pained when I feel that, wow, you don't understand. You don't get our pain. We have to get each other's pain. We have to feel each other's pain, right? And that's what Black Lives Matter is saying. Feel my pain. Feel my pain, right? Meet me in my pain. And we need to stand and say, as brown and as white and as purple and as black, right? Every color in the spectrum of the rainbow, every human being, we can feel each other. We can feel each other. And as Jews, we don't get to take the 12,000 Jews who were gassed a day in Auschwitz and weaponize our pain. We actually have to put down our weapon, and we have to actually let people in, right? And that's what Black Lives Matter is trying to do so beautifully this week. And let's honor each other. Let's honor each other's pain. And let's honor each other's unbearable beauty, unbearable goodness, unbearable greatness. I want to say this week that I'm proud of the United States. I'm proud of the protesters. I'm proud of General Mattis, right, who stood up and said, right, who was a secretary in the cabinet of President Trump, who resigned. And he stood up and said, I stand with the protesters. And I stand with their unifying intention. And I'm proud of President Mattis. I'm proud of the protesters all over the country and all over the world. And I'm proud of Dennis Prager at Prager University, right, who's critiquing not the protesters, but he's critiquing, right, many of the expressions of this week as an expression of a democratic process and a democratic dialogue and a democratic debate. And I'm proud of the fact that there's a national and international consensus, which is the evolution of love. And the consensus is that there is no place in the world for police brutality. But you got to understand that's huge. That was never true in the world before. police brutality of all forms all over the world, right, was a given. And I'm proud of the realization, right, that actually the vast majority, as Barack Obama said, of police officers are holy and beautiful and gorgeous people who put their lives on the line every single day to protect people. And I'm proud of the initiatives to actually find that which needs transformation within law enforcement, right? That's actually taking place. And the concrete proposals that were put forth, right, by the various parties that gathered at Barack Obama's convened forum. And I'm proud of the moral consensus in this country, in America. And there's a moral consensus. And the moral consensus is, oh my God, there's got to be fairness. And there's got to be justice. And there's got to be love. And there's no love without justice, and there's no justice without love. And I'm super proud of the moments, right? You know, a kid in Buffalo who spends 10 hours cleaning up, right, after a protest. And I'm proud of Fox News, right, that got together and gathered, right, funds, right, for an African-American man whose home, right, was, right, his business, was burned down. And I'm proud of CNN and the Washington Post and NBC. Did you get that? Right, for their incredible coverage. Particularly the Washington Post has done an insanely, beautiful job. Can you hear this? Can you hear this? Right, there's so much to be proud of. This is a week that's filled with gorgeous human beings standing for each other. I'm proud for the way people were with each other at protests. I'm proud for the way that police, right, actually sometimes walked with protesters, right? The tens of thousands of gorgeous conversations that happened between police and protesters. Wow, right? For the police that took a knee, right, in New York, right, and in Portland, and in cities right across the country. That which unites us is so much greater than that which divides us. I have huge hope in America. I have huge hope for the world, because the integrity, the goodness that we are is going to carry us forward. It's not enough. It's not enough. We need to articulate first principles. We need to actually understand why the good, the true, and the beautiful are actually genuine values. We need to move beyond the social deconstructions of reality. We need to affirm new narratives of identity. Without that, we won't get there. Our innate goodness won't be enough. We actually have to go the next step. We have to make the Da Vinci move. We have to tell a new story. And that new story is the framework. It's the failure of frameworks that's devastated us. We need a new story in which we all have a place, in which no one's left out and no one's outside of the circle. Wow. 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 It's so good to be with you. And it's such an honor to be with you. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to do, as we do every week, we're going to do one church, many paths, one mountain. And we're going to pray together, and we're going to talk together, and we're going to chant together, and we're going to sing together. And then towards the end, we're going to do actually a Dharma talk about, right, the topic this week, right, the false split between Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter. And we're going to follow and echo Barack Obama. Your lives matter. Right, on every level. Right? Nothing and no one is left out of the circle. This is a time to move beyond demonization. We can argue passionately, right? But we got to be able to hear each other. We got to be able to hear each other's pain. And we can't weaponize pain, right? Wow. Wow. What a moment. What a beautiful, insanely holy moment in which we begin to realize amor. Its insides are lined with love. For real. And that love lives inside of each one of us. That love lives inside of every police officer. And yes, there are some police officers, right, who are bad apples, who need to transform and need to be brought to justice if that's the case. And there are doctors, right, who are bad apples and need to be brought to justice and need to transform if that's possible. And there's a very, very small minority of actors and the protesters who acted in bad faith. Some of them, and we'll talk about that later, probably weren't part of the protester community, but were actually bussed in and we're actually agent provocateurs in order to create division. And we need to call that out. And then there was a small minority of bad apples who did bad stuff and who need to be held accountable, right? Because a black man named David, right? And a white woman, right, named Jane, right? And down the list, David, right? Business burned down, right? Lost his life, right? Because some people went wild. We don't actually know who they were and we're not sure. Wow. Right? No one's outside the circle. There's no justice without love, and there's no love without justice. And every time we cry for all the times we never cried before. Right? And every time we scream for injustice, we scream, right, for all the times that we've never screamed before. And then we look at each other and we say, oh my God, I love you. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Wow. I'm more, right? Its insides are lined with love. David, take us inside. Resonate the code for us. And let's do sense making here. Let's do it with fierce integrity, right? And fierce love. And find not the contradictions of the moment, but the paradox of the moment. And the Garden of Eden, right, is not paradise. The Garden of Eden is paradox. And it's the ability to hold the paradoxes and to hold the complexity and to hold everybody right inside the circle in the deepest, most powerful, most gorgeous way. So are we together, friends? Are we together? Are we ready to play a larger game? Are we ready to hold the big picture in all of its pain and all of its contradiction, but in all of its paradoxes, right? And to hold hope in our hearts. Hope is a memory of the future. I am filled with hope this week. I am filled with hope as I see young and old, right? People from every dimension of the great rainbow of humanity coming together and holding hands around the world. As I see the vast majority, in Barack Obama's phrase, of people in law enforcement whose hearts are aflame and in devotion and in service, right? And as we come together and we link our hands and this mighty tide of justice and love, right, is aroused within us, we're going to step forward. We're going to create a better world. We're going to create the next step in the evolution of love. And we can be proud of each other this week. We can be proud of the vast, overwhelming majority of humanity whose heart beats with goodness, whose heart beats with truth, whose heart beats with beauty. We live in a world, friends, of outrageous pain. And the only response to outrageous pain is outrageous love. We live in the world, friends, of outrageous beauty. And we've seen this week outrageous pain and outrageous beauty. And the only response is outrageous love, but by outrageous love, we mean not just a phrase. We mean the realization that love is not just between two human beings, but the realization that, you with me? The realization that love is the heart of existence itself, that the allurement between quarks and molecules and the direction of cosmos that moves from bacteria to Bach and from mud to Mozart, from quarks to culture, that the evolution of love, in which the world has a consensus, and the consensus is absolute consensus, no one's outside of the consensus, right? That what happened in that town and that moment in Minneapolis was an abomination of human value. That's not okay, and that justice must be served. Right? Wow, there's a complete consensus of that, right? Of the leading edge of humanity around the world. Not everyone. No, there are countries that are despotic around the world. There are countries, right, in which you could not have the protests that we saw, right? So we're the leading edge of humanity, right? It's not true in China today. It's not true in Russia today. It's not true in Brazil today. It's not true in Venezuela today. It's not true in the Philippines today, right? You get that? It's not true, right, in Hungary today, right? There's a regressive move towards despotism. There's a regressive move towards making blood and the retribalization of the world more important than the shared story of our humanity. So this week is a moment of enormous hope, enormous gorgeousness. Right? Wow. And let our anger at injustice turn into hope, and turn that hope into action and into concrete plans and concrete initiatives And we need to protest and we need to vote and we need to participate fully, absolutely, massively in elections. And we need to move beyond the manipulations, right, into the shared hands, but enacted. You know, my close friend of mine said this week, he said, you know, that there's an enormous amount of information that suggests that postmodernism was funded by elite intelligence communities. And this, my friend, is a reliable source and a careful reader, that postmodernism itself was covertly funded, right, by intelligence communities, because its basic move of postmodernism was an utter critique of power and an utter critique of a notion of a shared value, right? Postmodernism's move was, there is no grand narrative, right? But see, what happens then is, then you basically take the intellectual elite, and what they do is they actually attack any notion of shared value. They attack any notion of the dignity of power, right? The dignity of power, the beauty of power, right? Evil is when I abuse power to avoid my transformation. Goodness is when I use my innate power for the sake of my transformation and the transformation of the all, and I realize that my transformation, my own moral transformation, is the transformation of the whole thing. And we come together, right? Just think about that idea. And we got to be really careful. This is the end of the introduction. We've got to be really, really careful here to know that there are bad actors on the stage. And part of sense making is to say that. Why were there pallets of bricks that just appear miraculously, right? No one knows where they came from. There's lots of theories, but none of them are validated. Pallets of bricks, right, around the country, right, at demonstrations. Why? Right? Why were there people dressed in black without police cards, heavily armed, without police badges, heavily armed, that appeared in a number of places around the country? What does China have to do with this story? It's a big question, right? The Chinese Communist Party is a bad actor, right? And there's legitimate information, right, that suggests that both Russia and China have looked to meddle in the United States. We know that Russia directly funded, right, ads on both the white and black side, right, of the American political conversation, each one attacking each other during the previous election in order to create polarization. Wow. Let's be really careful. You know, the Carnegie Foundation, right, at the turn of the century in America, actually fanned racial divide in order to make sure, right, that what they then called the workers didn't come together, and they played the race card to create division in order to allow for enormous exploitation and completely violent wealth accumulation to take place. I just want to notice something here. Let's just notice something with the police officers and the protesters. We're part of the same potential. We're part of the same promise, right? We're part of the same poignancy. And throughout history, in the United States and around the world, the race card has been played to create this intertexted war, so that we actually avoid the real issue, which is a class issue. And the class issue is this enormous gap, this growing gap. See Piketty's book, right? Capitalism in the 21st Century. This enormous gap between the haves and the have-nots. This enormous accumulation, right, of wealth by oligarchies when we don't have global public goods, as Joe Stiglitz pointed out. When we don't have, right, healthcare. When we don't have retirement. When we don't have a sense that a human being's basic survival needs are met, even though we have enough food, right, and enough resource, right, to guarantee the basic survival needs of every human being, right? Wow. Let's get this straight, right? Let's be really careful here not to be played, and to know and not to be naive. There are bad actors in the story, and we need to try and identify the bad actors, and we need to actually remove, right? The protesters were this gorgeous group of people, and it's very clear that actually bad actors, right, actually infiltrated the protests, as they did in the 70s, right? COINTELPRO, a particular operation by the CIA, right, particularly designated, right, to infiltrate. So got to be careful here, okay? Right? Russia absolutely, deliberately used, right, the white-black divide, right? In the election, as I just said. It's happened again and again and again. So friends, it's one world. It's one love, right? It's one heart. We feel each other's joy. We feel each other's pain. We don't weaponize pain, right? We come together, we stand together. We begin to tell a shared story in which every human being is a unique self. And every human being is a unique expression of the love intelligence and love beauty that is the initiating and animating energy and eros of all that is, that lives in us, as us, and through us. And we come together as unique selves, knowing that each of us has a unique gift. Each of us has a unique capacity for sense making, right? Each of us has a unique quality of intimacy, and together we form a unique self-symphony. And in that unique self-symphony, there are unique instruments, and there are instruments of race. It's legitimate. It's legitimate to be proud of being Jewish. Of course it is. Obviously it is. Black pride, Jewish pride, Chinese pride, right? We don't want a homogenization. We don't want a kind of all lives matter. No, you can't actually say Black Lives Matter. Of course you can. Of course there's a legitimate, unique experience, right? Which is replete with gorgeousness and beauty and depth and wisdom and with outrageous pain. And of course, I can invite you to know the unique depth of my experience. Of course I can. Of course we can. There are unique instruments in the symphony, and there's a symphony. And that music that we're all playing, there are different notes in the symphony, there are different instruments, but underneath the notes, underneath all the different instruments, all the different unique, right, experiences that never want to be obliterated. They want to be honored in mad devotion. Underneath all of it is music, and the music, my friends, is not race. The music is humanity. Right? The music's not race, the music is humanity. Different instruments, but one music. It's a jazz symphony. There's lots of different movements, and we bow to each other, and we step back, and we hear each other, and we feel each other at different moments, but it's music, and that music is love. That music is one love, and one heart, and one eros, right, and one joy, and one world. Wow. Oh my God. David, maybe before you resonate the code, let's go to Amor. Let's hear Amor. Let's hear the chant that we chant every week. Thank you, friends, for just beginning to do sense making together. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Right? I'm just madly in love, right, with each one of us. And let's be madly in love with each other. Can we be madly in love? Can we just be madly in love? Let's be madly in love. Right? Outrageous love. Right? Rumi said, right, ordinary love is not going to do it. We need to be madly in love. Let's be mad lovers of reality, mad lovers, right, of each other.
Amor, 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 amor,
We're going to do a special session today, right, to actually try and do even deeper sense making And we want to do it as an evolutionary, revolutionary act. This is a time where sense making is desperately needed, right? Sense making is protest. The highest form of protest, right, is the protest, right, in which we actually step into the very fabric of reality and we do sense making. So walking down Fifth Avenue is critical, and doing sense making is a revolutionary act. And ultimately, protest needs to lead to activism, to legislation, to sense making. If protest just stands by itself, it won't change anything. That's what Barack Obama said gorgeously and beautifully. We got to protest, and then we have to actually do the sense making together. So I want to invite you to stay and be with us. If you want to be a revolutionary today, stay with us and do sense making. If you can't make it, totally cool. Love you madly. Okay? So I want to just, before we go into prayer, which we're going to pray, I want to just feel a beautiful, right, a beautiful chant written by, right, our new lead executive producer, Krista, right? And it's a chant with actually the words of the Dharma that we began with last week. And then she put it to song, and anyone's invited, and everyone's invited, right? Put it to song, right? Create, contribute, right? This is yours, this is ours, this is our revolution. So take us inside, right? Let's hear this new song. It's short, right? But it's gorgeous, and it puts the right, let's just feel it together.
The world is burning, the world is turning around for you. Standing for justice, united as one for you. And we cry all the tears we never cried before. And we scream all the screams we never screamed before. And we sing, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, I love you. I'm so sorry, please forgive me, I love you. What is the heart aching? What is the gasping for air we need to do? When the knee of injustice is choking the tears of you. We are one tribe, we are one heart, we are one love, we are one world. We are one tribe, we are one heart, we are one love, we are one world. And I cry all the tears I never cried before. And I scream all my screams I never screamed before. And I sing, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, I love you. I'm so sorry, please forgive me, I love you. We are one tribe, we are one world, we are one heart, we are one love. We are one tribe, we are one world, we are one heart, we are one love for you.
We're going to take that inside, and we're going to go directly to prayer. Let's go directly to prayer. The holy and the broken hallelujah. And Leonard, this week, you and Krista sang together. You'll be with us next week, the holy and the broken hallelujah. Let's go directly to prayer, right? And what are the words, right? What are the, right? And let's just kind of feel it, right? And find it together, right? The words are, the world's turning. The world's turning around, and it's turning to you. And it's for you, God, and it's for you. Your lives matter. It's for each one of us. It's for the irreducible dignity of every human being. And we know that every time I cry for all the times I never cried before. And every time I scream for all the times I never screamed before. And every time I love, right? I love, right? For all the times I never loved before, okay? And every time I pray, right? I pray for all the times I never prayed before. So let's all of us, right? All of us, let's drop to our knees. Let's drop to our knees in our hearts, right? Let's take a knee and let's pray. And when we pray, right, we actually realize its insides are lined with love, and reality's not a tale told by an idiot full of sounds and fury signifying nothing. We realize, based on the best sciences, interior and exterior, that reality is alive and it has purpose and direction. But that purpose and direction is not owned by one race. It's not owned by one religion. It's not owned by one set vision in which everyone else is dominated. We realize that the music is one love and the music is one heart. And we're held by that which is so much greater than us and that lives in us at the same time. And no word is wasted, and every word is heard, and every word is inscribed on the heart of the divine. And the God you don't believe in doesn't exist. Right? God is so much more than the God you don't believe in. Right? The God who is the incessant creativity of a cosmos that knows our name and that stands with every protester and that stands with every police officer. Right? And that stands, and I want to say something that's hard now, okay? I'm going to say something that's hard, okay? That stands in the heart of every looter and every violator, right? And of every person that's done something horrific and wrong, right? Right? We don't throw people out. We don't throw people out, right? Everyone gets a second chance, right? Justice has to be served and, right? The whole point of knowing the depth and beauty, right, of the one love that animates reality is that I can go to prison and I can come out of prison and I can begin my life again. And that everyone gets a second chance. Everyone gets a second chance. Everyone gets to start again. Everyone gets to reclaim their second innocence. You know, you only can feel shame. Right? There's two kinds of shame. There's a legitimate shame, which is the shame that I wasn't who I really am. I wasn't my unique self. Then there's the shame that's toxic and debilitating, which says I'm broken and I can't be fixed. And I only get to feel that sense of, right, the shame that I was. I'm going to talk about that shame more deeply in a little bit, but I only get to feel it at all when I know that I can transform it. When I know that actually I can get underneath the space-time continuum and I can realign and reset my intention, reclaim my innocence. So let's pray, friends. Let's pray for all the times we've never prayed before. Let's cry for all the times we've never cried before. Let's scream for injustice for all the times we've never screamed before, right? Oh my God. Okay, so we're going to go to the chat box. I'm going to invite everyone to pray. And when we pray, those of you who've never been with us, we just ask for everything. We ask literally for everything, for every person in the world, for ourselves. We ask for our personal needs because there's dignity to our personal needs, and we ask for the needs of the world. So let's pray, friends. Let's pray like we've never prayed before, right? On our knees, right? Every time, whenever we're on our knees, my friends, we're always on our knees, right? To the good, the true, and the beautiful, to God, to the highest ideals to which we are called, right? Oh my God, right? Krista, I pray that every human being may be in the field of outrageous love and wake up as homo amor, that we live in earth in peace and harmony. Mosa, right? I pray for all of life, and my tears are prayers. Nathan, I pray that my vision for an evolved care solution center be recognized, and unique self-evolutionaries help me manifest it for the democratization of enlightenment, right? There's the Dharma in front of you. Right? And the democratization of enlightenment is the democratization of greatness. Tina, I pray that everyone unites and that everyone has their needs met, and I open my heart to love. And I pray for all the times I've never prayed before. David, I pray to sharpen my discerning mind to penetrate the world's yearning for a new narrative. Oh my God, right? Laura, when I pray for the courage to step fully into my abundance so I may use it to love all humanity. Mickey, I pray I can stand up for every injustice. Right? Amen. Right? Kirsten Zohar, I pray that we can stand for injustice, for justice and love. We can forgive each other and find the words to ask for forgiveness. That we can transform and grow and reclaim our innocence. Oots. Beloved Oots, I pray for the humility to take reality as is. Terry, I pray that the opening in this moment moves us to homo amor. Enoch, right? Beloved Enoch, I pray for the awareness of one world, one heart, one prayer for a world without violence. Right? Shahati, I pray to be awake and not compromise myself. Harry, I pray for science to find out very soon that love is the ultimate form of the universe. And Harry, we call that the ontologizing of love. And I think actually that science already has found out. We haven't put the pieces together. And our commitment at the center is to write this new story. And the story is that love is not weak, love is strong. It's actually the strongest force in cosmos. It's the truth of reality. Raquel, I pray that our collective sexual ideals expand, that everyone be included. Yes, Raquel. And as Wilhelm Reich said, when I split off from the integrity of my desire, I produce fascism of every kind. And America, right, has to beware of fascism today. And whenever we cut off from the sacred desire and dignity of who we are, right, it goes underground and it re-expresses itself, as Wilhelm Reich wrote already in the 20s and 30s, as the worst forms of fascism. So reclaiming our desire, friends, make love during this period, right? If you're by yourself, make love with yourself, right? Feel the goodness of your body, feel the goodness of your embodiment. It's a critical moment to feel, to be in your body, right? And to dare the full dignity and delight of your body, right? To find the sanity and goodness and open to our deepest dignity, right? I pray that my mind and body may relax and trust deeper, right? And deeper in the service, right? Of our great movement, right? I pray, Mickey, for the ones who don't see, that they can see and feel and include everyone, right? Roger, right? I pray for new understanding and awareness and love for us all. Jacqueline, I pray to never put anyone, right, in a box, right? Sally, I pray for the fullness of bellies and hearts around the world. Penny, love is the strongest force. Suzette, I pray for Damon's family and for all the fallen officers and everyone, right, that are in the path, right? Amen, right? Can you feel that, friends? Right, let's bring these. Jamie, thank you, right? Jamie, I pray to feel the truth, right, of beautiful, diverse communities that create one body and co-create Homo Amor. Friends, every time we pray for all the times that we've never prayed before, okay? Like, wow. And if you can't stay with us, right, we're here on the end of the formal service. Now we're about to do sense making. So I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you for your gorgeousness and thank you for your beauty. And now, if you're ready to be revolutionaries, are we ready to be revolutionaries? Right, who's ready? Who's ready to be a revolutionary? Who's ready? Are we ready for it together? Are we ready to play a larger game, right? To see a bigger picture, to move from contradiction to paradox, right? Right, to know that paradise only lives, right, in paradox. To know that we have to go all the way, right? Are we ready? Are we ready to participate together through sense making as revolutionaries, right, in the evolution of love? Are we ready? Yeah, we're ready. Okay, so let's do it together. And I want to ask everyone, if we can, let's start with a moment of silence. Let's speak from the silence. So I'm gonna turn off the picture. I'm going to turn off the sound. And let's just together now have an incredible moment of silence. Right? Not of silence of absence, but silence of presence. The silence beyond words. And we'll move from that silence into sense making. Amen. Amen. Okay, here we go. And let's bless each other, friends, right? We all have the power of blessing, right? And let's find the softness in our hearts and let's find our fierce audacity. And I'm gonna go through a number of points, right? I'm not gonna weave it into a tapestry, right? Because it's not a tapestry. There's a lot of hanging threads. I just want to notice some things with you. We did a lot of sense making, right? during the actual time of One Church, Many Paths, One Mountain, we'll recapitulate a couple of things that we've said. Let's try and find each other, okay? And let's do this for the sake of all that is. And I'm going to go slowly. Let's begin with, the actual theme of this week, which is a hard theme, right? It's a hard theme, right? It's not simple. It's not simple in any sense, shape, or form, which is Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, right? A false split. Let's see if we can find this, okay? So we've talked about this very deep idea, which is the evolution of love. The evolution of love. And we said that at the first stage of love, and I've spent the last 10 years trying to articulate this idea and to articulate these new phrases. So at the first stage of love, there's what I want to call egocentric intimacy. And what's egocentric intimacy? It means that I love and I can feel only those people who are in my circle. Now, that's a great stage of development, right? That's not like a low thing. That's not like a low stage. That's not primitive. That's huge. To be able to feel the people in my circle. I mean, how many of us would like one friend of ours that's close to us to feel us? To be able to feel our children, to feel ourselves, to feel our partners, to feel our friends is huge. It's gorgeous, right? And it's egocentric intimacy. And intimacy means, right, I have an actual shared identity with you. We actually share identity. And together with our shared identity, right, we have mutuality of pathos. We can feel each other. We have mutuality of recognition. We recognize each other. We have mutuality of purpose. We can come to shared purpose, right? So we have a shared identity in the context of otherness. That's the intimacy equation, right? Intimacy equals shared identity in the context of relative otherness, plus mutuality of recognition, plus mutuality of pathos, plus mutuality of purpose. And that works across all dimensions of reality. And that's, if you will, the new relativity equation of the interior sciences. And that's what we're writing on as we're writing the new story. And we've spent a decade on just that equation. It's unbelievably important, right? So shared identity means, right, between a couple, between friends, between brothers, turning Cain and Abel into something new and greater and more beautiful. We have shared identity. We feel each other, right? Wow, it's gorgeous. As one of the great Hasidic masters, one of the masters of Hebrew mysticism, said that on the day he died, he said, I want to atone for one thing, right? That I loved my son more than the son of my neighbor. And he said, I'm going to have to reincarnate in this world in order to atone for that sin. Wow, right? Wow. And of course, that's the paradox. We do love more easily. We do feel more easily people close to us. We do. We do. And in some ways, we need to. And in some ways, that's beautiful. And I'm responsible in a certain way for my son in a way that I'm not for my neighbor's son. Right? And my son, right, came out of me. Right? But my friend, right, came out of my relationship and my, right, my circle of intimacy and influence, right? My little circle of survival people, right? It's all beautiful. And we need to participate in the evolution of love. And to participate in the evolution of love means, as that master said, I've got to love my neighbor's son. And I got to stand for my neighbor's son. And I've got to feel her and feel him. And so I move from egocentric intimacy, right, to ethnocentric intimacy. And ethnocentric intimacy is gorgeous. Right? It says that, and it's hugely important. It says that beyond blood, right, I can actually have a felt sense of shared identity, right? I have an actual shared identity. We don't fuse together. Shouldn't be totalitarian. It's in the context of relative otherness, but we can actually feel each other. And I'm willing to lay down my life for my tribe. Wow. Now, there's, of course, false versions of that, right? There's shadow versions of that. Right? There's all the wars that should have never been fought, but it's also an evolution of love, right? I stand with my Jewish brothers. I stand with my Black brothers, right? I stand with my Chinese brothers, right? I stand right, with, right, my fellow Bulgarians, right? I stand with the French, right? I stand, right? In other words, there's a gorgeous ethnocentric intimacy, which I expand my circle beyond the clan of the hunter-gatherer period, right, into this, again, lots of shadow, but at its core, there's an evolution of love. There's an expanded circle of intimacy, right? There's a felt sense of care and concern. That's ethnocentric. Now, is there room for the ethnocentric? Of course there is. Of course there is. Is the ethnocentric holy? Of course it is, right? Do we want to lose the ethnocentric and leave it behind? No, of course we don't. Of course we don't. Can there be a shadow to the ethnocentric? Of course there can, right? When us, them means, now stay with me, when us, them means that you're outside of the circle, so therefore I can kill you. Or us, them means that you're outside of the circle, so I give up hope of you ever being able to feel me. Because the boundary of ethnocentricity, the boundary of race, the boundary of religion, the boundary of nationalism is so abrupt that you can never enter into my suffering. You can never enter into my experience. You can never enter into, right, the way the music of my instrument feels. Like there's an impenetrable wall, ultimately. There's an in-group and an out-group, right? Now, I want to go deep with you, okay? I want to go deep with you, right? If I say you can't feel me in some ontological way, there's an ontological, ultimate, non-permeable barrier, right, between us, right? You can't feel me, well, then ultimately I can't feel you. And if I can't feel you and you can't feel me, we're going to kill each other, right? It's a win-lose metrics. We're going to abuse each other. We're going to hurt each other. So I need to be able to give you the gift of knowing that I want you to feel me. And I may challenge you to feel me. And I may challenge supercilious, superficial, shallow virtue signaling when you say you feel me, but I don't feel felt. And I have a right to challenge you. But at the core, right, the shadow of the ethnocentric is that shared humanity is not achieved, right? We become sectarian, right? And, oh my God, friends, right? Ethnocentricity destroyed reality, right? The horrors, right? Voltaire in the modern period, when he says, remember the cruelties, he's talking about the cruelties inflicted by in-groups on out-groups, where we actually create a feeling of our own aliveness by placing someone else outside the circle, right? Now, of course, we're right. Of course, there is a unique fraternity. There's a unique sisterhood and brotherhood and a unique love in an in-group, and that's beautiful. That's the gorgeousness of ethnocentricity. But the pain, right, the horror, right, of ethnocentricity, right, is when, right, that boundary becomes impermeable. I'll tell you something, you know, as a Jew, right? If I didn't know that every human being could, if they wanted to, become Jewish, I wouldn't be Jewish. I would leave Judaism. But Jewish law is that every human being can become Jewish. Wow. Right? Now, not every human being can become Indian. Not every human being can become black. Not every human being can become white. Right? So obviously there are boundaries of skin, right, that can't be traversed. But every human being can realize that those boundaries are surface, that they're ultimately not real, that it's about the content of our shared character, and it's about our shared values, and it's not about the color of our skin. So the shadow of ethnocentricity, or let's call it the shadow of blood, where blood is what it's all about. No, we move from the ethnocentric to the world-centric. Now stay close, okay? When we get to the world-centric, we say that there's a larger circle of intimacy. We move first from egocentric intimacy to ethnocentric intimacy, right? And then we move to world-centric intimacy. Now, in world-centric intimacy means that I can feel you. We can all feel each other because we're all human beings. That's wow, right? We're all part of this, right? There's one race, the human race, right? Wow. Now stay close, stay close. In unhealthy development, in development which violates the nature of reality, right? What we do is we develop to a new level of intimacy or a new level of consciousness, and we exclude the previous level. So we say, you can't say Black Lives Matter, it's only all lives matter. How dare you say Black Lives Matter, right? We're world-centric. No, that's wrong. That's wrong, right? At world-centric, we transcend and include the level that came before. And in developmental levels, it's not so much higher, they're distinct expressions. They're not hierarchical in the sense that one obliterates the other. Each one represents a legitimate sacred moment of spirit, of value, of consciousness. So when I move from ethnocentric to world-centric, I don't leave ethnocentric behind. I become a dual citizen. And I'm Jewish and I'm a citizen of the world. I'm white and I'm a citizen of the world. I'm yellow and I'm a citizen of the world. I'm black and I'm a citizen of the world. I'm French and I'm a citizen of the world, whether it's race or whether it's gender, right? Or whether it's religion, right? Or whether it's nationality, I become a dual citizen. And I can be more than a dual citizen. I can be a triple citizen. I can be a quadrinity citizen, right? I contain multitudes. But let's just talk about dual citizen. I can actually be a dual citizen. That's a very big deal. Did everyone get that? So wow, that's big. Lionel Richie's song, right? We are the world. Now let's go back for a second. Here's the core sentence, and let's try and find it together. So the core sentence is, your need is my allurement. Let's see if we can get deeper for a second, okay? We all have basic needs. We all have core needs. And part of being a human being is that because I'm an other, because I'm distinct, because I'm unique, I'm other from you. And beginning with the baby, there's some level in which you both feel me, and there's also some level in which you're not attuned to me. And so when and every human being has had this experience of being a baby, it's where we feel the one world, the one love, one heart, right? Babies all over the world. And there's some level in which each one of us, right, tries to get our basic needs met. We try and be recognized in our uniqueness, and there's some sense in which we succeed gorgeously. And there's always, by definition, it's not an accident. It's not a bug in cosmos. It's a feature. There's some sense in which we're not quite attuned. It's how we distinguish ourselves, but we're also humiliated. We're humiliated in getting our basic needs met. There's an essential humiliation that takes place. So where do we heal that humiliation? We heal that humiliation, right, when we hold each other, when we move to help each other. We heal that humiliation with our beloveds. Sometimes it's in sexuality. When in sexuality, our lover says, your need is my allurement. Sometimes it's in activism, right? When an activist partner says, your need, right? Your hunger, right? Your hunger, your unemployment, your lack of healthcare, right? Is my allurement. You get that? Your need is my allurement. When I can actually move beyond myself and feel you, and I'm intimate with you, and I have shared identity with you, and I can say to you, your need is my allurement, right? Then the original humiliation of basic needs, right, which comes from our lack of alignment and attunement, which we need for our individuation. We need to emerge as other. We need to emerge out of the womb and to actually individuate, right, as unique selves. So we can actually individuate as unique selves and also heal that primal wound which every human being possesses. But again, not as a bug in cosmos, as a feature, right? The nature of the human being is to transform the wound. And it's the untransformed wound which becomes violent and ugly. Right? We transform the wound. We hold each other. And I can actually say to everyone in my family, your need is my allurement. Beloveds say to each other, your need is my allurement. We say to our close friends, your need is my allurement, right? And I'm not put out, I'm not burdened by meeting your needs, right? Tell me how to touch your heart, right? If it's beloveds in a relationship of amor, which is sexual, tell me how to touch your body and your heart together, right? If it's, right, mother and daughter, father and daughter, if it's friends, tell me how to touch your inner heart. Tell me how to touch you emotionally, aesthetically, intellectually, right, existentially, right? We want to feel each other, we want to touch each other, and we want to know that our need is dignified. And then we expand that circle and we say to everyone in our not just our egocentric intimate circle, our ethnocentric intimate circle. We say, your need is my allurement. I feel you, sister. I feel you, brother. I feel you all the way. I feel you all the way. And I'm willing to give myself up for you to some real degree. I'm willing to sacrifice for this larger vision, right? Right? Remember Saving Private Ryan, that movie by Tom Hanks, right? In which, right, tens and tens of thousands, by the way, parentheses, of white males, right, together with black males, storm the beaches of Normandy, right, going into machine gun fire, right, in order to create liberation, right, for humanity, right? Your need is my allurement. I'm willing to sacrifice even my life because I realize I'm part of the larger field of life, and that larger field of life in which I am a part transcends death. Your need is my allurement. And then we get to world-centric intimacy. Oh my God, back to Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson, right? We are the world. We actually feel each other, and we're one family, and we're one heart, and we're one world, and we're one love, and we're one eros. But we don't obliterate our ethnocentric intimacies, right? We hold them together. We're ethnocentric and we're world-centric at the same time. And then we expand our circle of intimacy, right, to cosmocentric intimacy in which we feel every human being, every pangolin and every bat at the wet market in Wuhan, China, right, and the animals that get devastated in the United States, right, and factory farms that are virtual concentration camps for animals. And we realize that every animal has a quality, and that quality is often, even usually obliterated and ignored, and we expand our circle and we actually feel, right, the animal world. We feel the trees and we feel the plants and we feel, right, the living earth herself, right? Wow, right? Can you feel this? Okay. And so at this moment, right, we need to be in this place in which we're holding the gorgeousness of the story. We said doing the first part, you can always hijack. Listen to this. All lives matter, and make all lives matter a covert platform for racism. Right? All lives matter. We're going to deny Black Lives Matter. We're not willing to say that. Right? Wow. Right? Do you have that picture, Christina Emlon, of that beautiful young girl, right, who was carrying a poster? There we go. Right? That? Right? Christina? Look at that beautiful young woman. Right? I mean, is she awesome? Is she awesome? Is she like beyond awesome? Right? We said Black Lives Matter. Never said only Black Lives Matter. We know all lives matter. We just need your help with Black Lives Matter. For Black lives are in danger. Right? Right in this moment. And that doesn't mean, friends, okay? Let's go back. It doesn't mean that other lives aren't in danger. Of course, other lives are in danger. Right? And of course, the depth of the Black community knows that. But it's saying, feel me in this moment. Right? Feel me. Right? Are you willing to feel me now? Right? Right? So, Shad and Christina were having a conversation yesterday, and Shad said, right, when you say to someone, my grandmother died, right? You don't want them to say, well, my grandmother died too. You want them first to stop for a second. We bracket ourselves. This is a big word, bracketing. We bracket ourselves to feel you. So I want to bracket myself and feel you. Okay, your grandmother died. I'm with you and your grandmother died. And then you'll be with me, right, when my grandmother died. And then let's feel it together. We can feel each other in some deep and powerful way. So I want to take a second here for a second, okay? And I want to share with you a clip, right? A very, very painful clip, but it's one that's important to see about, right, a young man named Khalif, right? And tell me, Christina Emlon, if you've got that clip, right? I know you and Shati found it before, right? And it's a clip that kind of captures, because this is a moment to feel it. It's a clip that captures a movie from a movie called The 13th, right, that captures this moment. It's the story of a young man, right? And just give me a heads up in the chat box to let me know if you have this, okay? So stay close with me, guys, okay? So just let me know if you have this, so when I say it, I kind of can look in the chat box and see, do we have this, okay? Yes, awesome. Okay, awesome. I'm just gonna say something about it, and then we're just gonna watch it for 3 minutes, okay? And then we're gonna go deeper. We're gonna go to the next step. But it's a clip about a young man that captures, right? This is the story of rage, right? This is the story of rage. It captures a young man who's falsely arrested, right, for a minor incident that he didn't do. doesn't have money to get out of jail, is thrown into jail, and goes through unbearable torture simply because he's vulnerable, right? He's not powerful, and the system doesn't stand for him. And there's a systemic, structural, right, violation of the goddess, which is beyond imagination. Okay, so let's watch the clip.
On the night of his arrest, Kalief Browder was walking home from a party with his friends in the Bronx when he was stopped by police.
Kalief was charged with a crime, a really petty crime that it turns out he didn't commit.
Then they said, we're going to take you to the precinct, and most likely we're going to let you go home, and then I never went home.
They told you that you could post bail.
Yes, that's correct.
$10,000.
Yes.
And of course,
I couldn't make that. My family couldn't pay it.
There are thousands of people in jails right this moment that are sitting there for no other reason than because they're too poor to get out.
We have a criminal justice system that treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. Wealth, not culpability, shapes outcomes.
And I think what most Americans think of, because they've watched so many courtroom dramas and things like that, they think that criminal justice system is about judges and juries. Well, that's really stopped being the case.
The system simply cannot exist if everyone decides to go to trial.
Everybody insisted on a trial, the whole system would shut down.
What typically happens is the prosecutor says, you know, you can make a deal and we'll give you 3 years, or you can go to trial and we'll get you 30. So you want to take that chance? Feel free.
Nobody in the hood goes to trial.
97% of those people who were locked up have plea bargained. And that is one of the worst violations of human rights that you can imagine in the United States.
You have in this country people pleading guilty to crimes they didn't commit just because the thought of going to jail for what the mandatory minimums are is so excruciating.
Kalief Browder decided, I'm not going to take the plea.
So you had to choose between being in prison for up to 15 years and going home right then by admitting you did a crime you didn't do.
I felt like I was done wrong. I felt like something needed to be done about this. I felt like something needs to be said. If I just cop out and say that I did it, nothing's gonna be done about it. I didn't do it, no justice is served.
What you're not taught is that if you exercise that right to a trial and you are convicted, we will punish you more.
The courts basically punished him for having the audacity to not take a plea deal and to want to take it to trial. And in that time, in those 3 years that he was sitting there and not being charged for anything, that's when the mental health issues started to deteriorate. He started to get into fights.
After a while, I just kept hearing the same thing from the whole 3 years, and I just learned to cope with just being in there, and that was rough. I already knew. After a while, I just gave up hope.
Three years on Rikers Island, 2 of that in solitary confinement. And he was a child, a baby.
You miss everything about being home, the fresh air, your family, certain events. You want to be home, and then when they give you an offer to go home right then and there, it's like, I want to go home, but then you know you didn't do it, so you don't want to take the plea and say that you do it. It's not right. I was scared all day because I didn't know where it would come from. I don't know where any harm would come.
Kalief suffered through so many beatings, both by the people he was locked up with and the guards, he ended up attempting suicide on several occasions. After almost 3 years in jail waiting his trial, they dropped all the charges and he was set free.
He spent 2 years in an environment that people have argued is designed to break you within 30 days.
I mean, I can't really tell you what's next, but this happens every day.
2 years after his release from jail, Kalief Browder hanged himself at his home in the Bronx. He was 22 years old.
If I would have just been guilty, then my story would have never been heard. Nobody would have took the time to listen to me. I'd have been just another criminal.
That's now that story, when it's repeated time and again, right? Within a context of what actually is, right, a systemic structural racism that's built into the system. It's built in the system because from the moment of the original sin, and it's not an American original sin, it's a world original sin. Slavery existed the world over, right? In the mid-19th century, right? In the mid-17th century. It exploded. It was the sin of the world. And I want to say something really hard now. Okay, so stay with me, okay? Stay with me really hard now. There are more slaves in the world today than there ever were at the height of slavery, okay? So we have sexual slavery in the world today. And we have labor slavery in the world over, right? We have some of it in the United States, right? There's both sexual slavery, right, and labor slavery in the United States, but it's exponentially larger around the world. And it's aided and abetted by drug cartels, by governments that turn a blind eye, and by our silence. So we get to this Khalif story. It starts with slavery, but just to understand, there's slavery all over the world today, right? Ranging between 17 million and 35 million slaves in the world today by any definition of slavery. Wow. Let's just understand. So what are we doing, right? Where is our energy? Where's our energy? I tried to, right, in 2007, I tried to work with a wonderful man who was starting an organization at that moment to take on sexual slavery, right, and labor slavery in the world. And I wanted to stop teaching and just take on that issue, right? And I found that I didn't have the power to do it. When I say I didn't have the power, meaning the egoic battles between the NGOs, between the non-government organization, right, and the people speaking world-centric talk, but actually being in shadow egocentric battles with each other. And I didn't have enough personal wealth or enough political power, right, to actually change it. And so I stepped back from it, and I realized that I need to actually engage in trying to change the very source code structure of everything. And I began the enterprise of trying to write together with so many of you, right, this new source code, right, these new distinctions, these new first principles. So slavery is, right, lives world over. So the Khalif story starts with the expression of slavery in the United States, right? It's horrific slavery, right, in India and in Pakistan, right, and in Asia, right, and all through Europe and all through Africa, right, all through Africa, right? In other words, right, forms of slavery every place and everywhere. Okay, so the United States, it is part of that, and there's this original sin of slavery. And then after, right, I mean, just let's get this clear here. After tens of thousands of white males, right, and black males came together and fought, right, on the side of the Union in the Civil War, right, and laid their lives down, and Lincoln did the Emancipation Proclamation, we moved beyond slavery. But then there was Jim Crow, and voter suppression, right, and the first mass incarceration, right, of the black community, right, in which, right, the exception to the Emancipation Proclamation was, right, criminals, right, and so the black community was quickly and falsely criminalized, right, and then there was the redlining of districts, right, in which, right, which still takes place, right, which took place for decades and decades in America, in which, right, you weren't able, banks lent to people only in particular districts, and you couldn't get a loan for a house in other districts, and so therefore you couldn't buy a house, and you couldn't get a college loan, and you couldn't get admission to college, right, and schools were funded by property taxes, right, and so the black communities often lived in the poor communities because of the redlining, and so therefore the property taxes couldn't support a good school, right, and the white communities lived in, right, the wealthier districts, which had much higher property taxes, so they could afford the great school, which then opened up other sets of opportunities. You begin to see the story, right? There's this systemic layered structure that's been going on since the inception of slavery, and that's real. That's real. That's real, right? Right? And there's different structures of systemic racism around the world. And this is America's version of it. Right? And so that produces in the end, that's the backstory, right? Which allows Khalif to be arrested, to not be able to afford bail, right? It was $10,000. Obviously, they didn't have the $10,000, right? To not have a public defender, to be powerless. The most important statement that appears 39 times in the sacred ancient texts, which are called, right, the texts of Genesis and Exodus, the biblical texts, is you shall not oppress the stranger. And the stranger is any one of us who's vulnerable, right? Any one of us who doesn't have the power, right, to stand for justice. We have to stand with that person or with those people, whoever they are, right, for justice. And we can't turn a blind eye and we can't be silent. And that includes, right, the 17 to 35 million slaves in the world today. Like, wow. Okay. Wow. I want to see two other clips now for a second, okay? I want to see two other clips because we saw a vision, a terrible vision, right, of police officers, right, in that clip. So I want to see two other clips now because, as Barack Obama said, the vast majority, right, of police officers are gorgeous and putting their lives on the line, right, every single day. And now I'm going to flip. I'm going to say completely opposite of what I just said. Okay, it's going to be jarring to some people, but that's what sense making is. We hold paradox, right? Right? What do you think the statistics are in an encounter between a black man and a white police officer? Right? Right? What are the statistics? Who has more of a chance of being killed? So the tragic answer, and I spend the night fact checking this every place I could, the tragic answer is that the white police officer has a much, much, much greater chance of being killed. That's just true. That's true, just all across the board. Liberal, conservative, there's no argument about this. That's objectively true. That's tragic. Okay? And the white police officer can be killed by, right, a white murderer or a black murderer, right? But the police officer is putting his or her life on the line, right, protecting the community in the best way they can. And do we need to do police reform? Yes. Yes, 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 yes. And do we need to honor our police officers? Yes, of course we do. Of course we do. Let's see two clips, right, from Flint, Michigan and from New York, right? And understand that that which unites us, right, is so much greater than that which divides us, right? And, you know, David, who just made a comment, came back from a rally, right? And I've heard it from 7 or 8 other people at different protests. When you have signs saying all police are, right? Police are, that's a tragedy. That's what Barack Obama was speaking to. That's a tragedy. So let's honor our police officers in this moment. Okay, so let's take us inside.
We want to be with y'all for real. So I took my helmet off and laid the batons down. I want to make this a parade, not a protest. Come on. That's it. You got little ones here, you got dogs, so what's up? So listen, I'm just telling you, these cops love you. That cop over there hugs people, so you tell us what you need to do. Walk with us! 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 Let's walk with us! Let's walk with us! Let's walk with us! Hey! Hey! Look at the motherfuckers, stupid motherfuckers. No justice! No justice! You better walk right there with me. No justice! Where's the man? Where do you want to walk? We'll walk all night. Where? Tonight's a great night for a walk. Minnesota if we have to.
Can we? Oh, sure. Yes, sure. Yes, ma'am. That's right. That's right.
Thanks, everybody.
Let's get it.
Don't do it, folks.
We're going to say the names of all those who lost their lives. Ahmaud Arbery.
I'm the only one out here right now. You want to come out here right now? You want to come out here right now, boss? You see me like a boss?
Eric Garner.
Eric Garner.
Freddie Gray.
Freddie Gray.
George Floyd.
George Floyd.
Let's take a moment of silence.
We hold that together. Let's hold that together. Let's hold the beauty of that one love and one heart and one eros. Now let's go deeper. Let's go the next step. Not deeper, let's go the next step. Okay? I'm gonna make 3 more points, and each one, right, we need to hold the paradox of this moment. So here's 2. So we talked last year at our summer festival, right, where we get together to try and do sense making together. And Shad, if you have a chance, maybe put a clip. We're doing it this summer together online, right? Because we want to do social distancing and just kind of get the paradox of this moment, right? And how the news cycles shift, right? We were kind of just beginning to come out of lockdown. We weren't sure what's possible. And all of a sudden, right, reality just erupted out of lockdown around the world, right, into protests. And just feel the strangeness of it, right? Obviously, social distancing couldn't happen in any real way at rallies. People did their best. They came with masks. And just feel the paradoxical impossibility of the moment. We come with masks. We've talked about the danger. 100,000 people plus in the United States have died, hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and yet protests exploded. So what happened? Right, what happened? What happened to, right, the utter need for being super careful in opening up states? And what happened to the fury, right, at the particular places that were thought to open up states too fast? Right, now, again, this is not, right, there's no answer to the question. I just want to hold the paradox with you, okay? What does it mean? People, sacrificing personal safety, but it's not just our own personal safety. We could be endangering many, many other people. We actually don't know what the result of the protests were. So I want you to get with me the impossibility of the moment, okay? This is not to solve it, right? This is not to say right or wrong. This is to hold the agonizing paradox of the moment, right? Both the protesters were at enormous personal risk, right? But each protester, of course, then interacts with everyone else they interact with, right? So it's exponentialized throughout the world. We have no idea what the effect of the protests will be. We don't have information on it. So I just want to feel, right, the poignancy of that. I want to feel the power of that. I want to feel the pain of that. And I want to feel the impossibility of that. I want to feel the contradiction of that, but take it from a contradiction to paradox, right? Right? This is the agonizing paradox of this moment. So that needs to be said. Right? So that's the first thing. Now, 2, let's take it the next, right? Let's take it the next step. Okay? Let's take it the next step. And let's hold, don't try and resolve the paradox. Right? Don't try and resolve it, friends. Hold it. Don't try and explain it. Okay? There is no easy explanation. There's no easy explanation. There's something deeper happening here. And that's the next thing we need to point to. And we said every time we scream for all the times we've never screamed before. Right? Every time we cry for all the times that we never cried before. So let's try and understand for a second and do deeper sense making. How did we get here? Right? We got here because the world was in a win-lose metrics, turning away. Right? We turned away from injustice. Right? We turned away from sexual slavery. Right? We turned away from labor slavery. We turned away, let's take where I live in the United States. We turned away from the fact that there weren't, as Joe Stiglitz, right, the Nobel Prize winning economist said, there weren't global public goods. In the United States, they're not public goods. There's not universal health care. Now, there's complicated reasons why that exists, right? It's a complex set of structures. There's no easy bad people. But there is turning away, and there's tragic turning away, right? And there's the silence of absence, right? And there's the evil, right, of turning away. And there's the evil of stepping into my own egocentric intimacy. So I'm going to tell you something really painful. Most people in the world, conservative and liberal around the world, right, are mostly in egocentric intimacy, a little bit ethnocentric. What that means is not what I say, it's where I put my money. It's where I put my time. It's where I'm willing to commit. Where do I commit when it's outside of my hero's journey? Where do I stand and say, I'm going to show up every year? I'm going to show up every summer. I'm going to stay in. Right? Our devotion is to ourselves and our own egocentric circles. Right? Right? Particularly conservative world and liberal world, this very narrow circle of devotion. We turn away. Right? Our desire for justice has been dulled. Right? You get that? And it's painful. It's painful to realize. Right? And what happened is that we got fundamentally devastated around the world. We got fundamentally shamed. Do you know that most people were humiliated? Let me go back. Were humiliated. Most of the world today is humiliated in getting their basic needs met. Right? Most of the world today lives in some version of paycheck to paycheck. The majority of the world. Do we get that? How many of us get that? There's lots of great things happening in the world. Right? There's lots of progress. There's lots of beauty. Steven Pinker is pointing to a lot of it. And there's a fundamental sense of a planet drenched in shame. And a planet drenched in shame because most people in the world are living from paycheck to paycheck, don't have a basic sense of their intrinsic value. If you can't commodify and produce and monetize it, you're not valuable in the system, right? And even though the system has enough to support every single person in the world, there's no need for hunger. There's no need for people to be paycheck to paycheck. There's no need for a pandemic. There's no need for sexual slavery. Right? There's no need for labor slavery. There's no need for people without health care. We turn away. That means we place people outside the circle, right? So I want to say something, with your permission, painful. So when we can't, when people lose their own ability and they feel lost in the emptiness and they lose their own sense of desire, Audre Lorde, right, the great, lesbian feminist Black writer, gorgeous, wrote that we turn to find some glimmer of sensation in pornography. So the explicitness of pornography, right, arouses for people desire. And we're not going to talk now about the tragedy of pornography and what erotica might look like, and that's different conversations, not for now, but clearly, right, reality is wired in this pornographic way in which people go to avoid the pain and to find this moment of desire. Now, in what's called Tantra, and by Tantra I mean, right, not about sexuality. Tantra is a stream of thinking in all the world traditions, which operates on the principle of non-rejection. That even the most painful, the most brutal has something in it. Right? Reality is a trickster, says Tantra. There's a principle of non-rejection. Everything has a place in some way, right, at the table. And we have to trace every experience, right, back to its source. We hold everything. So I want to say something that is really painful to say. It's really, really painful to say, right? And it's we all know it's true. And it's a horror, right? What we saw 2 weeks ago, when we saw the horrific death of George Floyd, is essentially the world watched a murder. The world watched a snuff video, if I can use that word, right? We actually watched a person being killed. Do you understand what that means? And let's just get what that means. And people went into addictive cycles. It got watched. We actually know the analytics. It got watched again and again, right? It's much deeper, Brother Nathan, than if it bleeds, it leads, right? The world actually watched a snuff video. It's a horror. And thank God for the video, because the video actually allowed, right, for a bringing to justice. And there's no love without justice and no justice without love, but just get what happened. And reality desires. Now, reality desires, right? Sexual desire is just one expression of this larger field of desire, right? Alfred North Whitehead, the appetition, the appetites of cosmos. Reality desires goodness. Reality desires fairness, and reality desires justice. So the entire world watched, and thank God, the gorgeousness, the world got outraged and aroused. The world got aroused, but aroused to justice, right? Aroused to the eros and dignity of human life, and aroused to gorgeousness, and aroused to truth, and aroused to stand against systemic racism, and aroused to stand together in protests. But the world got aroused, right? We were aroused all of a sudden, right? That which was invisible to us. And I want to talk to you for a second. I want to reach you for a second, right? So much is invisible, right? Nicholas Kristof writes, had no one shot a video of George Floyd, right, then we wouldn't even have heard of him, right? And so that video, right, that horror, that snuff video, right, actually aroused us, but it aroused us to who we are for real. It aroused us to the dignity of our desire, our essential desire for the good, the true, and the beautiful. And all of a sudden, all of postmodernism fell away. There was no social construction of reality. What my friend Yuval Harari wrote, which is the narrative of justice and human rights and the narrative of Gaddafi's Libya, are both just fictions. Sorry, Yuval, not true. That fell away. We saw this injustice and we screamed because we understood that this was a violation of reality. It was a violation of the goddess. It was a violation of everything that we hold precious. It was a violation of what it means to be a human being at the most basic way. And all of a sudden we realized, oh my God, there's a shared story of value, right? There's a shared story of value, and that story of value is larger and more gorgeous, and we're all part of it. And we have to say no to injustice. We have to join our hands. And so we were aroused, and we exploded in arousal around the world. But we have to sustain arousal, right? And so what does it mean that we actually don't have a video, right? To actually show that a Black boy born in Washington, D.C., Missouri, or Alabama, or Mississippi, or a number of other states has a shorter life expectancy than a boy born in Bangladesh or India, right? What do we know? We don't have a video that shows us that Blacks are dying, writes Nicholas Kristof, right, from the pandemic, from the virus, at more than twice the rate of everybody else. And that as a result of mass layoffs in the last couple of months, fewer than half of African-American adults now have a job. Wow. And what do we look away from? It's what Robert Kennedy talked about in 1968, right before he died. He said, this is the violence of institutions and inaction, right, and slow decay. This is the violence that afflicts the poor, that poisons relations. It's the destruction, the slow destruction of a child by hunger, by schools without books and homes without heat. Right? Wow. Right? So let's go deeper. Let's go one step deeper one step deeper. We're just about done. Let's go one step deeper. So here we are. And we're not weaving, we're just pointing to the sense making that we have to do. We said last week, what is my unique risk? What can I do? Right? What's my unique risk? Where can I stand for love and justice? Right? In my circle of intimacy and influence, where do I actually stand for devotion? right? For devotion, which is beyond my egocentric intimacy. Where do I stand for something that doesn't serve me, right? I have a friend who always asks me, how does this help me? Well, let's stop asking, how does it help me? How does it help you? When do I bracket myself and bracket my hero's journey and bracket my development and actually say I'm in devotion to you, right? It's not that I give myself up. We never give ourselves up because then we lose our creativity, we lose our aliveness. But I want to be in devotion to you. I want to be in devotion, right? How do I stand, right, in my circle of intimacy and influence and take my unique risk, right, to stand against injustice, right? To actually demand and to not stand down, right, until the knee of unlove is removed from the neck of the goddess all over the world. What's my unique risk? And that's the question. So let's go back, okay? Let's go back to, right, we're in lockdown, right? We're in the pandemic, right? People around the world are shamed. There's a planet drenched in shame because people are losing their jobs all over the place. But even before the pandemic exacerbated the institutional, structural, class inequality in the world. And by inequality, I don't mean that everyone has the same outcome, but everyone has the same opportunity. And everyone has the same possibility. You know, Michelle Obama's mother, I stood for Michelle Obama and made sure that she got out of her school in the south side of Chicago, and she just raised hell until her daughter got into a school that could meet her mind and meet her soul. And then Michelle's mother says, and there's so many girls like Michelle on the south side of Chicago who don't have a mother to stand for them, right? How much creativity, how much gorgeousness is lost and wasted in the world? So where do I stand? Where do I stand? Where do I take my unique risk? Now let's go back again. Let's go deeper. So we're in the pandemic. And the pandemic, right, there's much less testing for vulnerable communities, much less testing for marginalized communities, almost twice the amount of deaths for marginalized communities. And that's the term that Barack Obama used, marginalized communities, right, around the world. People have a sense that they're in menial jobs, paycheck month to month. They don't have fundamental security. And so we're humiliated in getting our basic needs met. And how many billions of people around the world are doing a menial job when they have a gorgeous, unique self? Can you feel that with me for a second? Right, and here I'm going to speak to upper middle class people of every color around the world. Can we feel that? Right, we get to try and live our unique selves. And around the world, there are unique selves that are unfulfilled, billions of unfulfilled unique selves. Do you understand the shame in that? Do we understand the shame in that? The shame of not being able to live your unique self, right? The shame of not being able to give your gift. The shame of not feeling your creativity flowing through you, that your clothes don't fit. How do you feel when your clothes don't fit? I went to school. My parents are Holocaust survivors, and, you know, we were short of money. So I went to a private school and I had, you know, pants that were up to my ankles that had patches over holes that were plaid and cheap, and glasses that, you know, looked horrific to everybody. And everybody made fun of me, right? And they called me Windfag. That was my name. Now, wow, right? So what does it feel like when your clothes don't fit? And I remember to this day, I can remember exactly what it felt like. And when I swore to myself in 4th grade, I'm never going to forget the pain of this, right? So people all over the world, their clothes don't fit. They can't breathe, right? The very cloak of their humanity, right, is choking them. They can't breathe. People around the world can't breathe, right? The dignity is being breathed out of them, but we look away. We look away. So what's my unique risk for not looking away? And so the planet's drenched in shame. Can you feel that? Drenched in shame. I'm shamed because I'm not living my story. I'm shamed because I can't give my gift. I'm shamed because I'm humiliated in getting my basic needs met, right? Wow, right? Wow, wow. Now, I want to go one more step. There was a suggestion, a beautiful friend of mine wrote me yesterday, and a suggestion that had been made by a particular writer thinker, that actually, you know, countries need to experience their collective shame, right? You know, the collective shame, right? With a collective guilt. So I want to be really clear, I don't believe in collective guilt or collective shame. It's really important, and neither does the Dharma. We move beyond blood. Germans today are not responsible for the gas chambers of the Holocaust. Americans alive today that are not responsible, right, for, right, well, let me say it differently. They're not guilty, right, for slavery, right? Indians alive today are not guilty for what the caste system did 100 years ago. We're not guilty for that, right? That's blood. That's saying you're responsible. That's actually a form of racism. You're responsible because you're of the same blood, even though you didn't do it and you had nothing to do with it. That's not true. Okay, that's really important. So America should not be shamed, and India should not be shamed, and Germans alive today should not be shamed. And, now hold the paradox with me, and there's a covenant between the generations. We're responsible for today. We're responsible for the injustices of today. And there's a covenant between the generations. There's a beautiful text. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et Shabbat, beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam. There's a covenant between me and the children of Israel, right? There's a covenant between me and between the children of Israel. And so the way the mystics interpret this text is that there's two covenants. There's a covenant between the human being and spirit, and between the children of Israel means between the communities of the committed in every generation. So wherever we're born, right, we're part of some of the trajectory and destiny of that place, right? We're ethnocentric and we're world-centric. So in the United States and in Germany and in India and in Africa and in Asia, there's a covenant between the generations. Are we guilty? Should we be shamed for what we didn't do 150 years ago? No. But we should be completely responsible for what needs to be done today, right? So let's get that. So on the one hand, there's no place for shame, which is the experience that I'm broken and can't be fixed. That's toxic shame. But there's utter place for that shame, which is, right, wow, I wasn't my unique self. I looked away. I didn't take responsibility. But that shame is not a shame that I'm essentially broken. That shame is the shame that whispers and calls me to greatness. Right? On the one hand, we remove all shame that I'm broken, right? I'm essentially broken. I'm missing a part. It's not made anymore, right? I'm defective. No, we reject that shame. And yet in the tantric principle of non-rejection, reality is a trickster, right? We trace every experience back to its root. We don't shame shame. And shame has a place. But its place is I'm not shamed for what I had nothing to do with. I'm shamed for what's in my circle of intimacy and influence to do that I avoided, and I can heal that shame by stepping in right now. And so I'm going to take my unique risk, right? In my story, in my circle of intimacy and influence, I'm going to step in right now, and I can actually transform. It's called in the lineage teshuvah. I can actually return to the deepest place inside of me. I can get underneath the space-time continuum, and I can really become someone entirely new by taking my stand, right? By taking my knee, right? Be willing, right, to actually bracket my own hero's journey for the sake and in devotion to you. So there's a covenant between generations. And in the United States, there's a covenant, and in Europe, there's a covenant, and in India, there's a covenant, right? All over the world, there's a covenant between generations. Margaret Mead and James Baldwin had this conversation, a great conversation about, right, is there a kind of collective guilt? And what they were able to kind of come to together is there's absolutely responsibility right now. We're responsible right now. And the way we would say it is, you can come closer, you can step back, but you can't look away. Right? So this is the moment. This is the moment to explode, right, in the passion and gorgeousness of confessing our greatness. And we confess our greatness by taking responsibility. And we take responsibility not by having to heal the whole thing. That closes our hearts. We can't heal the whole thing. But I can step in and take my unique risk in my unique circle of intimacy and influence and drop a knee, right, and be in devotion and reach beyond myself and move, right, to heal the tears of oppression, right, and to demand, right, goodness, truth, and beauty in this world, right? And there's some place where I can demand it that no one else that ever was, is, or will be can demand it. And that's not just my privilege, that's actually my obligation. And that's what I want to finish with. Obligation, last sentence. We're obligated. right? We're not just privileged. It's not just an option. We have to reclaim obligation, duty, honor, obligation. But it's not imposed upon us by a culture. It's not a social construction of reality. It's the ability of my unique self to give my unique gift, to do my unique sense making, to move beyond contradiction to paradox, to know, right, that the promise needs to be kept, and there's a promise that can only be kept through my giving my unique gift, through my sacrificing, through my bracketing, through my devotion to you, through my ability to feel your pain, and to know that if you're hungry, I'm hungry. If you're outside the circle, I'm outside the circle. Right? Wow. Cha. Okay. Wow. Let's breathe for a second. We're going to close now. Right? Our last second. Thank you. Thank you for this courageous, right, willingness to stay together and do sense making. Krista, right? Come and tell us how to come on board, right? How to join, how to become part of this revolution, right? This sense making, right? This gorgeousness. Let's do this together, right? Let's do this together. Let the mighty tide, right, of justice and love together, inextricably linked, flow through the land. And I turn the word to you, Lady Krista.
Wow, thank you, Mark. What an honor and what a privilege it is to be here together with all of us every week. I feel my heart opening and it feels so tender to share this moment with you. I'm here every week to invite all of us to step in, to participate in the evolution of love, to join, to become a member, to contribute. But this week I want to start with actually inviting you to come closer. Because Mark shared so beautifully, we need to feel each other and we need to hold hands together. And that's my invitation for you this week, to become actually part of this community. And I feel so blessed and honored to be meeting already with some of you throughout the week, through all the little love notes and connections and outrageous acts of love that we are sharing. We are practicing, we are becoming a unique self-symphony. We are a unique self-symphony here together, and we get to experience actually what it feels like to be in that field of outrageous love, and what it feels like to say, your need is my allurement. So one of the main practices that we do is committing outrageous acts of love and sharing the stories of those. And I want to share a quick story with you this week that I received an amazing outrageous act of love where I could really feel that your need is my allurement. But then the other way around, because my need was someone else's allurement. I was working a lot on my computer, on my laptop, and it was giving me headaches and my wrist was hurting. And I didn't even need to ask for help because already Shahad stepped in and other people stepped in, offering me her computer screen. And then someone else offered me to drive that computer screen all the way to my house. I didn't even need to ask for it. So that's one example of an outrageous act of love that Shahad and Govind and Barbara have committed for me this week, in which I really felt loved and honored and held by this community. So that's also my invitation for you to come closer in whatever way you feel alert right now to come closer. And I'm going to share with you all the ways that you can do that. But the first one is actually, I'm going to, after this, post my email address in the chat box and invite you to, if you have anything that you would like to share with me or just want to connect with me, or you have an idea of how you can contribute, please feel free to send me an email. And I'm delighted to connect with you and to get to know you. So another way to get to know each other and to come closer is that we have every Monday an online course. For the past weeks, we have been writing outrageous love letters together. And starting tomorrow, we are going to continue for 6 weeks with writing evolutionary love codes. That is going to be led by our beautiful Christina Amelong. And it's free and it's online, and you are so welcome to join. So please send me an email if you want to join, and I'm going to send you all of the information. It is tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time, which is 8 p.m. European time. And we write outrageous love letters there, and we connect with each other face to face. It's a beautiful space to get to know each other. And everything that we write, we also post on our Facebook page. This is a beautiful opportunity to find each other during the week. It is on Facebook. It's called, of course, Outrageous Acts of Love. And we share our outrageous love letters, but also, as I've just done, our stories of outrageous acts of love. And I haven't actually written about this one, but I am now committing to you that I will post this story as well on this page. And here you see our lovely, gorgeous goddess, Tina, who has shared her picture and her beautiful love letter. And there are many other stories here on this page. Jacqueline has posted about an amazing artist that is creating very inspiring street art. So you can find beautiful inspiration here. And I invite you to share your outrageous acts of love as well. You can do that by clicking here on the community tab. That's where all of you can post. Make sure that you read each other's posts you like and you comment, and we celebrate each other's greatness and our courage to become more and more visible in this Unique Self Symphony. And next is our website. That is onechurch.world, and here you can find how you can actually become a member of our community. And you can do this by making a financial contribution, and this is of course super important because this is the way that we can actually share the Dharma with the world. And all of the funding that we receive goes directly into sharing this message. So please go to our website, make a one-time donation, or even better, become a member. It already starts, you can choose your own contribution, but it starts from only $25 a month. And if you become a member, you will gain access to our online community. And what is amazing, you will gain access to these 9 beautiful courses. All of them contain hours and hours of the transmission of the Dharma. You can deepen your study. There's lots of practices there to integrate it into your daily life. And members are also meeting each other for study groups, which you can of course also study on your own in your own pace. So go to onechurch.world, become a member, and I can't wait to meet you inside. And there's actually one last thing that I want to invite you to do. We are going to share the video clip that we have created. A lot of effort has put into that, a beautiful video clip of the Dharma that Mark shared in our last week, which is also about all of the topics from today. And it feels super important to actually share, to contribute to this conversation online with all the hashtags, All Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and actually share something that has depth and meaning. And so I want to invite you to take a look at this amazing video clip and share it with your friends. And it's also a beautiful way to invite your friends to come to this live stream next Sunday. So thank you very much, and I hope to meet you somewhere during the week this week. And I give my word back to you, Mark.
Oh my God, thank you everyone. Let's just see a couple of people to wish each other the most gorgeous week, right? The most gorgeous week. Let's be alive. Let's be in joy, even as we're holding the pain, and let's take action, right? Each one of us, wherever we can, right? However we can. Thank you all like madly.